Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm John Ralston. We're talking state and soon national politics with Steve Wynn. Before we move on to the national political level, you mentioned some of these industries that haven't paid before. Another thing it's being chatted about a little bit in Carson City, Mr. Wynn, is mining, the mining industry, which I've watched in astonishment in all the time that I've been here. Those guys were smart enough to have written the Constitution, so they have all these protections nobody else does. But here, gold has been trading very high. They can't just leave. They can't just leave. The gold is still in the ground, right? And yet still, they seem untouchable.
They are the most privileged of all the industries, second only to media. The newspapers, and the television people don't pay anything to speak of. And they got the biggest mouths in the state, too. They talk more than everybody
Present
else.
company accepted or not?
No, present company accepted, John. Of course, you're a reticent person.
That's right.
But the mining guys, they get away with murder here. They do not pay anywhere near their fair share.
I want to talk a little bit about the federal government, and specifically President Obama. With all this brouhaha over President Obama's remarks when he said people shouldn't go to the Super Bowl, take junkets to Las Vegas on the taxpayers' dime, there was all of this. Let me show you what you had to say. Let me show you what you had to say, and then I want to get you to expound on it. You said, "I'm sure the president didn't mean to stigmatize the convention and meetings business in Las Vegas when it was conducted by companies that weren't on the government dole, but that's the effect that it had. The negative publicity associated with Las Vegas is spurring cancellations across a city already hurt by the U.S. recession," Wynn said. The chairman of one of the healthiest companies in the U.S. paid a $3.3 million fee to scrub a $5 million sales training event, he said. "It's disturbing to me when the chairman of such a company feels intimidated," he said. He said he hopes the rhetoric that is used is more considered in the future. "It's been demonstrated to us that can have unintended consequences." And let me ask you a question.
State Farm Insurance Company.
Yeah, State Farm Insurance Company is what you were talking about there. But this was, let me present you with the proposition.
Cost us about $8 million.
Let me present you with the proposition here. President Obama made this comment, which seems to me a fairly reasonable comment, that if you're getting this bailout money, you shouldn't be using it to go to junkets in Las Vegas or take your folks to the Super Bowl. At a town hall meeting, it was a throwaway line, a natural line. If everybody here with the big mouths here had not made such a big deal about it, would all of these problems have ensued?
Well, those of us who had the big mouths, as you say, we're the ones that had the business canceled on us. So he may have made it as an off-the-cuff limited remark at a town hall meeting.
Some of these cancellations came before the remarks, though, Mr. Wynn.
This came after the remark, State Farm.
And then suddenly Oscar Goodman's going on CNN and all these places.
There were a bunch of them that canceled, John. And they did it as a direct result of not wanting to appear profligate or wasteful. The president has enormous leverage, which in this case had an unintended consequence.
You admit it was unintended, though, right? I mean,
it appeared to me to be unintended. Yeah. It appeared to be unintended. But I think there's a bias in the government to get a pound of flesh. There's a meanness in this government against business.
The current government, or generally
the federal government? This administration has a sense of anti-business because of the excessive things that were done on Wall Street. And I might add in the Congress, Barney Frank was screaming that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac should be given more money out so that every American can have a home, whether they can afford it or not. Barney Frank, we saw videos of the chairman, Barney Frank, pounding the table, saying that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had to get more loans out to people so that everybody could have a home whether they could afford it or not. Now, this kind of virus affected everybody. If the president and the government want to create jobs, listen, handing out money in the terms of rebate checks, we know doesn't work because people spend it. The only thing that makes for a better life is a job, a regular payroll that you can count on that allows you and your family to have security.
What's the best way to create jobs?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And the government has the most powerful tool known to mankind, tax policy. If you wanted to create jobs in every sector of this economy, in every community, from Seattle to Palm Beach, from Bangor, Maine to Phoenix, you could do it in less than a month without hiring any federal employees. You'd simply say, if a company can prove that it has increased its regular workforce with health insurance, if you want to make sure, then you prove to the IRS that you've added these people for a period of time, and we will give you a tax credit to support the payroll of that new hire. You would see, instead of handing out trillions of dollars in stimulus packages, by not collecting the money, by incentivizing people to hire other people, by supporting the payroll in forms of a tax break, you would have jobs created from one end of this country to the next. I remember that we discussed education. The president ran on a policy of we got to increase education in America. Well, any president knows that the right to set salaries is determined by local governments according to the Constitution of the United States. And there are teachers' union and there's no teachers' union. There are good ones and there are bad ones. It's none of the federal government's business about unions. What is the federal government's business is that the more good people that are in a job, the better the job gets. So if you wanted to change education in America and you were Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama, all you have to do is say that if anybody changes their career and becomes a teacher and gets accredited and works for 5 years, we will give you tax-free income up to $75,000. You would have a complete change. And if you stay for 10 years or you get an additional degree, we'll give you $100,000 of tax-free income. The society would make a priority for for teachers, which we should for the sake of our own future, and we would change the dynamic of education in every community in America without changing property tax, without charging more money. No state or city can afford new property tax to pay for teachers.
We have to take a break, and we're going to let Steve Wynn fix the rest of the federal government in our last segment when Face to Face returns.